Hello everybody. Welcome to the course Why the World Feels Broken and What Actually Fixes It. There are 6 episodes in this course.
Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to push past all the noise, the day-to-day headlines, and really dig into a fundamental pattern that shapes pretty much everything in our world, from the wealthiest cities to the regions facing the toughest challenges. Okay, so take 2 cities. On the one hand, you've got Stockholm, Sweden. On the other, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Now, on the surface, you might think, wow, these places couldn't be more different. But here's the thing. If you look deeper at the core human stuff, how people work, how they raise their families, that basic drive for a better life, it's identical. The real difference isn't the people at all. It's the environment they're in, the opportunities they have. And to really see this clearly, we've got to put on what I like to call our thick reading glasses. Think of it like this. It's about looking right through all the surface noise of history, the kings and battles and dates, and instead seeing these deep patterns in human society that just repeat over and over and over again. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about that universal human pattern. Then, we'll get into how poverty can create this really destructive cycle. After that, we're going to look at the rise of fundamentalism, but maybe in a way you haven't thought about before. Then we'll lay out a blueprint for stability, ask who really owns an economy, and wrap it all up with the single most important first step we can take. All right, let's dive right into our first section. We're going to unpack a truth that's surprisingly consistent no matter where you look in the world. So if you look back through history, it seems like societies really only have 2 paths they can go down. Path number 1, people get to share in the wealth that comes from all the industrial and technological progress. And when that happens, well, societies they flourish. And what's wild is they flourish in really predictable, similar ways. Doesn't matter if it's in Europe, Asia, or Africa. But then there's path number 2. That's where wealth gets hoarded by just a few and poverty is allowed to spread. The result? It's always the same: conflict and instability. And this is the absolute key takeaway. When societies develop, the behavior is the same. The only real difference is skin color. Think about that. The fundamental human response to having a chance, to having an opportunity, it's universal. Everything else is just on the surface. Okay, so let's flip the coin and look at that other path, the one where poverty takes hold. We're going to see how that creates a cycle that is as predictable as it is destructive. And the way this downward spiral works it's brutally simple. Step 1, resources get hoarded. They're concentrated in the hands of a very small group. That, in turn, leads to step 2, widespread poverty. And you have to understand, poverty isn't just a state of being. No, it's an active force. It creates desperation. And that desperation, that's what drives conflict. It fuels everything from local crime all the way up to civil war. And the final result? The whole society just destabilizes. All right, now this leads us to something pretty complex: fundamentalism. We tend to think of it purely as an ideology, right? A set of beliefs. But what if that's not the whole story? What if we looked at it instead as a strategic response to being dispossessed? So if we put on those thick reading glasses again, our sociological lens, we start to see fundamentalism in a new light. It's not just an ideology, it's a predictable human behavior. Think about it. When a group of people feels like their land, their resources, their entire future is being controlled by someone else, well, fundamentalism can become a really powerful way to try and take back some control, to fight back. And this really gets to the heart of the human drive behind it. People won't just lie down and perish. They just won't. They will stand up and figure out a way to survive. And this brings us to a really stark observation from history. And let me be clear, this isn't an endorsement, it's just a pattern. When the law of the land literally prevents you from surviving, from feeding your family, then breaking that law stops feeling like a choice. For a lot of people, it becomes the only logical next step. Okay, so we've kind of diagnosed the problem, right? Now, let's talk about the solution. And the good news is there's a clear, evidence-based blueprint for how to build a healthy and stable society. And honestly, the evidence here is just overwhelming. Look at this. When you have an economy that's basically set up to serve a tiny few, what do you get? Low stability, every time. But when you have an economy that serves the whole society, you get high stability. It's that simple. The connection is direct, it's powerful, and it's undeniable. which leads us to a really fundamental principle about what an economy is even for. You see, the economy shouldn't be one person's birthright. It shouldn't belong to a tiny elite. It should be society's birthright. Its entire purpose should be to serve everyone, to be the foundation that we all build on together. Because here's the bottom line. A big economy, a high GDP, that doesn't create peace on its own. A strong society creates peace. A society where everyone feels like they're a part of the team, working for the common good, that's the engine of real, lasting stability. So let's wrap this all up. Let's talk about the single most practical and powerful thing we can do to get to that stable world we've been talking about. You know, when you strip everything else away, it all comes down to one simple, undeniable truth. A person without food will find food. This is the oldest pattern in all of human history. That basic, powerful drive to survive, it will always be stronger than any law, any border, any system we create. And so that leaves us with one last question, and it's a big one. If what we all want, what we say we want, is stability and peace, then why do we tolerate its single greatest obstacle? Why do we allow poverty to persist when we know, from all of history, that it's the root of so much instability? That's something I'll leave you to think about.